Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And today we've got one that we've never actually, I was astonished. We've talked about passion projects and side gigs. We've never actually approached this one in quite this way. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. And I'm here with Erin Lowry, who is the author of the Broke Millennial series and also a Bloomberg opinion columnist. And we did a conversation together about young people and their career decisions. And it occurred to me that getting her advice on this question would be fantastic. And so the question today, Erin, and thank you for being with us, is should I get a full-time job or should I go become my own boss? How do I think about that?
And my recommendation is to consider how much you like health insurance because
say more, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, I do think that is one of the biggest things that keeps people at a traditional job, at a full-time job. Other benefits too, of course, but health insurance is one of the most obnoxious benefits to try to create on your own. And when you think about retirement plans, you actually have a lot of options as an entrepreneur or self-employed person. You have regular Roth or traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, solo 401ks, all these options that as long as you make yourself actually contribute to them, which I have some suggestions for that later.
Okay.
But you can get that handled, but health insurance is a beast, and dental and vision. And I was even saying, before we got on here, for me, dental was actually the one I felt really stressed about because, fun fact, I have two baby teeth that have no permanent adult teeth underneath. And one day they will break and I will have to get, I think it's about $5,000 per tooth to fix it with insurance.
Yeah.
So I need dental. Like when I left my traditional job, dental was the first thing I went and found for myself.
And so sometimes I think part of what's daunting about it is it's just unimaginable. If somebody's had a normal job, they just tick the box about their health insurance contribution. And, it's easier to imagine the work you might do as your own boss. Maybe if you're a graphic designer, you'd be doing the same graphic design work, but then thinking, how do I set up payroll for myself? And health insurance, like, who do I even call? So if somebody is beginning to explore whether that's possible, how would you advise they begin to figure out what their retirement and health and all that stuff options are? Is there a website to go to? Is there a Google search to put in? What do you do?
I mean, yes to all of the above. It does very much depend on the type of job you're looking for. Are you looking to do a full-on business where you're going to hire employees, or is this more of a solopreneur gig? And that's going to impact a lot of, am I an LLC or an S Corp? What kind of retirement plans am I setting up? And truly, there's value in hiring people who know. Like, hire an accountant to, one, handle your taxes, and two, advise you on things about the best way to set up your company. A CPA can definitely help with that. You should have a lawyer. But I would talk to other people who are already doing what you want to do and get their advice about referrals for folks to hire, suggestions on how to structure. That was a huge thing for me. But the other part too is, assuming your full-time permanent traditional job allows, start this on the side. Side hustling being a very classic millennial thing to say, but on the flip side, it's a way for you to actually beta test your idea before you leap out into the unknown, to make sure that it's viable, to make sure you can have some cash flow. And it's great to already have a roster of clients or people that you're working with before you quit so that you're a bit more ready.
We olds also like the side projects. Are there communities where if somebody doesn't have a person to ask, where they can go and kind of, click around some places on the internet where you would advise people lurk for learning these things?
I mean, for me, I really like the Freelancers Union. When I first started out, there's just a lot of information in there, especially about insurance policies. And if you join, there's also opportunities for disability insurance, depending on what you're doing, liability insurance. So it is really helpful. And I would also say, break it down into bite-sized chunks, just like any other big goal that you're trying to scale. Like, instead of thinking about all of the things that you have to do to be self-employed, just start with little ones a bit at a time. Buy that domain name, build the website, the little lifts first, and then move on to the bigger things.
I love that. And I used to be very dismissive of what I called playing house. And other people have said this too, like the person who, when they went solo, the first thing they did back in the day was get their business card, because it's that's just pointless. It's not the stuff that matters. But now the reason I've changed my mind is I think some of those actions of those little bite-sized steps are just symbolically and psychologically important for just getting yourself in the frame of mind. And it's interesting, it's such a complex issue. We didn't even really talk about, would you like the work better? What would the stressors be that might be? What are the pros and cons of the actual activity you might be undertaking? We sort of assume it might be a similar thing you're doing. Who knows? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. And your point about the nuts and bolts logistics, especially health insurance, I think is very powerful. It is, to me, another reason why, if we had more of a universal health solution in the United States, we'd probably have more entrepreneurship, a lot more entrepreneurship, even if the taxes were higher for it. And, talking to friends in Canada and the UK, they just don't have the same version of this. Although I just learned that in Canada, I guess dental insurance is not covered by the national health system. I don't really know. Anyway, so our U.S. attitude, definitely colors this to a degree. But I love this advice, or not advice, as we say here. In your case, you're qualified to give it. Usually, the reason we say it is, I don't really know what anybody should be doing with their life. We can share stories, we can share our perspectives, but you actually are in the professional business of expertise on this. So really grateful for you coming. Anything else you want to share before we wrap?
The one thing I will also say about all of this, and yes, to the psychology of you think you're going to be so much happier if you're self-employed, not always true, especially because you're performing every job and you have to pay self-employment taxes. So consider that as well.
Yeah.
But the big thing too is I feel that oftentimes when we see people launch out on their own, whether it's to start a business or to be an entrepreneur or to just be self-employed on a smaller scale, if they end up going back to a traditional job, we seem to position that as failing, which I find very frustrating. Sometimes you try something and realize that you don't necessarily like it, or why don't we just reposition that to think of it like job hopping, just we would with traditionally employed people. So it's okay to go in and out of doing this. You don't have to commit to full-time self-employment or entrepreneurship and then never again have the benefit of an employer.
I love that insight. In fact, in the tech industry, some of the most successful companies are the ones that actually make a habit of hiring people who have started their own businesses because they respect the skills and the mentality that they build in doing that. I love that. Hopefully everybody covers their bases and doesn't have to bet the farm to do this. I think that's another myth about self-employment, that it only works if you go all in. But your point about side hustles. So thank you. And I see we have some friends. Kylie, thank you for the comment on LinkedIn. And we get our questions from all of you out there. And so please feel free to ask them. And Erin, I hope you'll come back, and for everybody else, to be continued.